My beloved child. Stop scrolling for a moment. Do not move past this message yet. There is a reason your eyes landed here at this exact second. There is a reason your heart suddenly feels different while reading these words. And there is a reason the atmosphere around you seems heavier than it did only moments ago. What you are about to hear was meant to find you. Even if you were not searching for it. Even if you clicked by accident. Even if doubt is already whispering in your mind. Listen carefully. Because the next few moments carry a message unlike anything you expected. I, Michael, guardian of heavenly armies, come near you now with a warning, but also with a promise. A warning because time is moving faster than you realize. A promise because what heaven has prepared for you has not been cancelled. Many have tried to convince you that your season of miracles has passed. Many have spoken words over your life that sounded final. Many situations around you have appeared so hopeless that you almost accepted defeat as your destiny. But heaven has never agreed with the conclusions your fears have reached. Not once. And that is why this message is reaching you now. Because there is something happening behind the curtain. Something invisible. Something moving. Something that has already begun. Pause and feel that. For months, perhaps years, you have been carrying questions nobody could answer. Why did certain doors close? Why did certain people leave? Why did opportunities disappear just when you needed them most? Why did prayers seem delayed? Why did silence become your companion when all you wanted was a sign? The answers have been hidden longer than you expected. But hidden does not mean abandoned. Delayed does not mean denied. And silence does not mean heaven stopped listening. There were battles being fought over your future that your human eyes could never see. Battles you were never meant to fight alone. Battles that began the moment heaven marked your destiny. Because there are things attached to your future that are larger than you understand. There are lives you will influence. People you will help. Generations you will impact. And because of that, resistance appeared. Not because you were forgotten. But because you were chosen. The enemy rarely wastes effort on something insignificant. Remember that. The pressure you felt was not proof of failure. It was proof that your story mattered. Every tear. Every sleepless night. Every moment you stared at the ceiling wondering if things would ever change. Heaven recorded all of it. Not one cry escaped unnoticed. Not one prayer disappeared into emptiness. Not one act of faith went unseen. And now something extraordinary is approaching. Can you feel it? Perhaps not fully. Perhaps only a small stirring deep inside. A strange feeling you cannot explain. A sense that something is shifting. That feeling is not random. For days now, signs have been surrounding you. Small signs. Quiet signs. Easy to miss signs. Repeating numbers. Unexpected memories. Conversations that seemed strangely timed. People mentioning subjects you were secretly thinking about. Doors opening where logic said they should remain closed. These were not coincidences. These were whispers. Signals. Gentle reminders that heaven is closer than you think. Yet there is one thing you must understand before the miracle arrives. The miracle is not the beginning. It is the result. The result of battles already won. The result of prayers already heard. The result of divine movements already set in motion. You have been looking at the visible world while heaven has been rearranging the invisible one. And what happens in the invisible always arrives in the visible eventually. That moment is drawing near. Closer than you realize. Closer than anyone around you suspects. Closer than your fear wants you to believe. But before it arrives, there is something Michael must reveal. Because there is a reason urgency surrounds this message. There is a reason you felt compelled to stop here. There is a reason your attention keeps returning to these words. The next chapter of your life cannot begin while carrying certain burdens from the previous one. Some wounds still need releasing. Some fears still need surrendering. Some lies still need exposing. And one particular lie has followed you for far too long. It has whispered in moments of weakness. It has spoken through disappointments. It has repeated itself after every setback. The lie says, nothing will ever change. That lie has stolen enough from you. Because change has already begun. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not someday. Now. The evidence may not yet be visible. But the movement has already started. Think of a sunrise. Long before the sun appears above the horizon, darkness has already lost. The victory happens before the eyes can fully witness it. And that is where you stand now. At the edge of a sunrise. The horizon is beginning to glow. The darkness senses it. Fear senses it. Doubt senses it. That is why the pressure intensified recently. Have you noticed? Things may have become strangely emotional. Old memories resurfacing. Unexpected frustrations appearing. Confusion increasing. Some relationships feeling unstable. Moments of exhaustion arriving without explanation. You thought these things were signs of weakness. But many of them were signs of transition. Whenever one season ends and another begins, turbulence often appears. Not because heaven is absent. Because heaven is moving. And movement changes everything. Imagine standing beside an ocean before a massive wave arrives. For a moment the water pulls back. The shoreline seems emptier than before. If you did not understand what was happening, you might think the ocean was disappearing. Yet in reality, it is gathering strength. Preparing momentum. Preparing impact. Preparing arrival. The same thing has been happening in your life. What looked like loss was often preparation. What looked like delay was often positioning. What looked like emptiness was often gathering. And now heaven says the gathering season is nearing its conclusion. Something is coming forward. Something prepared specifically for you. Not for someone else. Not for another timeline. Not for another version of your life. For you. Exactly where you are. Exactly as you are. Even with your doubts. Even with your mistakes. Even with the questions you still carry. You have wondered if you missed your chance. You have wondered if you waited too long. You have wondered if the miracle was meant for someone stronger. Someone holier. Someone more deserving. But heaven does not choose according to human assumptions. Grace has never operated according to perfection. If perfection were required, no one would receive anything. The miracle approaching your life is not arriving because you earned it. It is arriving because heaven never stopped writing your story. And there is a chapter ahead that cannot be skipped. A chapter already forming. A chapter already breathing. A chapter already alive. Listen carefully now. Because what comes next may surprise you. The miracle is bigger than the specific thing you have been praying for. Much bigger. You have focused on one door. Heaven has been preparing an entire hallway. You have focused on one answer. Heaven has been creating a chain of answers. You have focused on one blessing. Heaven has prepared multiple blessings connected together. That is why the timing mattered. That is why the waiting mattered. That is why the preparation mattered. You were never waiting for a single event. You were being positioned for a sequence. A sequence that would make previous confusion suddenly understandable. One revelation leading to another. One breakthrough opening another breakthrough. One answer unlocking another answer. And when it begins, many pieces of your story will finally make sense. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to show you that heaven was working even during the silence. Enough to prove you were never abandoned. Enough to remind you that divine timing often feels mysterious until the moment it arrives. Yet there is still one final obstacle. One final test. One final decision. This decision is already approaching. You may not recognize it immediately. It may appear ordinary. Small. Insignificant. But it will carry enormous weight. Because this decision will reveal whether you trust what heaven says more than what fear says. The choice is closer than you think. And what makes it powerful is that no one else can make it for you. Not your family. Not your friends. Not your critics. Not even those who love you. Only you. That moment is approaching rapidly. And when it arrives, you must remember these words. Remember that fear always screams while faith often whispers. Remember that doubt demands evidence while faith walks before evidence appears. Remember that some of the greatest miracles in history arrived disguised as impossible situations. And remember that heaven has not brought you this far to abandon you now. No. Something else is happening. Something far more significant. Even now, as you read, movements are taking place. Conversations are occurring. Circumstances are shifting. Pieces are aligning. People who have never met you are unknowingly becoming part of your future. Paths are crossing. Timelines are converging. Opportunities are moving closer. Answers are approaching. And the strangest part? Many of these things began before you even knew to ask for them. That is how far ahead heaven sees. That is how deeply heaven prepares. That is how completely heaven understands what is coming next. Yet Michael's message does not end here. Because there is one revelation still hidden. One truth that changes everything. One detail about the miracle that few people expect. A detail so surprising that if it were revealed too early, many would not believe it. The reason heaven delayed revealing it is because your perspective first needed to change. Your heart first needed preparation. Your faith first needed strengthening. Because the truth waiting ahead is connected to something from your past. Something unfinished. Something you thought was over. Something you believed could never return in a different form. And when this truth emerges, it will force you to look at your entire journey differently. The signs are already appearing. The pieces are already moving. The countdown has already begun. But what happens next? What heaven is about to uncover. And the shocking connection between your past struggle and the miracle now approaching will be revealed only when the next part arrives. Because the final piece has not yet been spoken. You have come this far, and that is not an accident. Something inside you refused to leave. Something inside you felt there was more to this message. And that feeling is important, because what is about to be revealed reaches deeper than the surface of your circumstances. For a long time, you believed your greatest battle was the problem standing in front of you. The unanswered prayer. The delayed breakthrough. The relationship that changed. The opportunity that disappeared. The door that would not open. But heaven sees beyond symptoms. Heaven sees roots. And the root of the struggle was never simply the situation itself. The root was what the situation tried to make you believe about yourself. That you were forgotten. That you were unworthy. That you were too late. That your best days had already passed. That others were chosen while you were overlooked. That your story would always remain unfinished. Those thoughts visited you repeatedly. Sometimes in the middle of the night. Sometimes during quiet moments when nobody else knew what was happening inside your mind. You smiled for people. You carried responsibilities. You kept moving. But beneath the surface, there were moments when exhaustion whispered louder than hope. And yet you are still here. Think about that. After everything that tried to break your confidence, you are still here. After everything that attempted to convince you to stop believing, you are still here. After every disappointment, every setback, every unexpected detour, you are still here. Do not underestimate what that means. Many people only recognize miracles when they arrive dramatically. But one of the greatest miracles is endurance. The fact that your heart continued beating with hope when circumstances gave it every reason not to. The fact that faith survived storms that should have destroyed it. The fact that you kept walking through seasons you never imagined you could survive. That was not weakness. That was strength heaven placed inside you. And now that strength is about to be used in a way you never expected. Because the revelation Michael spoke of is connected to something from your past. Not a random event. Not an insignificant memory. Something specific. Something that left a mark. Something you occasionally revisit in your thoughts even now. You thought it was a closed chapter. You thought the story ended there. You thought heaven had moved on from that part of your life. But heaven never wastes pain. Never. What felt like a conclusion was often preparation. What looked like rejection was often redirection. What appeared to be loss was often positioning. There were lessons hidden inside experiences you did not understand at the time. Lessons about resilience. Lessons about discernment. Lessons about timing. Lessons about trust. And now those lessons are becoming valuable. Because the road ahead requires the wisdom you gained on the road behind. Nothing was wasted. Not the tears. Not the waiting. Not the confusion. Not even the mistakes. Especially not the mistakes. You have spent too much time believing your failures disqualified you. They did not. Some of the very experiences you regret most became tools heaven transformed into strength. You see scars. Heaven sees evidence that you survived. You see setbacks. Heaven sees preparation. You see delays. Heaven sees timing. The difference between those perspectives changes everything. And there is another truth you need to hear. The miracle approaching your life is not arriving merely to bless you. It is arriving to transform you. Many people seek outcomes. Heaven seeks transformation. Because an outcome can change circumstances. Transformation changes destiny. The person you were before this season could not fully carry what is coming next. That is why growth happened first. That is why patience developed first. That is why hidden preparation happened first. The blessing was never the entire goal. The becoming was equally important. And now heaven is preparing to reveal just how much has changed within you. Soon a moment will arrive when you realize you are responding differently than you once would have. The fear that once controlled you will have less power. The doubt that once dominated your thinking will seem weaker. The insecurity that once dictated your decisions will no longer possess the same authority. That realization will surprise you. Because growth often happens quietly. Day by day. Moment by moment. Until one day you look back and discover you are no longer the same person. That day is closer than you think. But there is something else moving behind the scenes. Something involving people. Not circumstances. People. Certain individuals have played roles in your story that were never meant to last forever. Some came to teach. Some came to challenge. Some came to encourage. Some came to reveal hidden strengths you did not know existed. And some came simply to prepare you for what was ahead. Not everyone assigned to one season is assigned to the next. That truth can be painful. Yet it is necessary. Because heaven sometimes removes what no longer aligns with the future being prepared. You cried over some departures. You questioned others. You replayed conversations. You searched for explanations. But what if some exits were actually protection? What if certain closed doors prevented larger heartbreaks? What if certain delays prevented larger disappointments? What if certain endings were not punishment at all? What if they were mercy disguised as loss? That possibility changes everything. Because it means heaven was working even when you misunderstood what was happening. And now another chapter is beginning. A chapter carrying opportunities that could not have entered your life earlier. Not because heaven lacked power. Because timing matters. Seeds planted too early struggle. Fruit picked too early disappoints. Doors opened too early overwhelm. There is wisdom in timing. And heaven operates with wisdom beyond human understanding. That is why impatience often creates frustration. You wanted immediate answers. Heaven was preparing complete answers. You wanted quick solutions. Heaven was building lasting solutions. You wanted relief. Heaven was building restoration. There is a difference. A profound difference. And soon that difference will become visible. Yet before visibility comes one final moment of trust. One final invitation. One final opportunity to release the weight you were never designed to carry. Some of you reading this are still holding old disappointments. Still carrying old conversations. Still replaying old betrayals. Still carrying guilt over choices that cannot be changed. Still allowing yesterday to steal strength from today. Listen carefully. The future being prepared requires lighter hands. You cannot fully receive while tightly gripping what should have been released. You cannot embrace new seasons while remaining chained to old pain. You cannot walk freely while carrying unnecessary burdens. Release them. Not because they never mattered. Because they matter too much to keep controlling your future. The miracle approaching your life needs room to arrive. And room is created through surrender. Not surrender to defeat. Surrender to trust. Trust that heaven knows what you cannot see. Trust that timing has purpose. Trust that delays have meaning. Trust that your story is not ending where fear predicted it would end. Because it is not. In fact, the most unexpected part has yet to unfold. Even now there are developments occurring that would shock you if you could see them. Names you do not know. Conversations you have not heard. Opportunities you cannot yet imagine. Movements already underway. The pieces continue shifting. The picture continues forming. The answer continues approaching. And when the moment finally arrives, many things that seem impossible today will suddenly appear connected. You will remember this season differently. You will remember these struggles differently. You will remember this waiting differently. Because understanding changes memory. And revelation changes perspective. The day is coming when you will look back and realize that what felt like chaos often contained hidden order. What felt like abandonment often contained hidden guidance. What felt like silence often contained hidden preparation. But there is still one secret left unrevealed. One final detail Michael has not yet spoken. A detail connected to a specific sign. A sign that will appear before the breakthrough fully manifests. When that sign arrives, you will know the season has changed. You will know the waiting is ending. You will know heaven's movement is no longer hidden. And the meaning of that sign. The reason it has been reserved until now. And the extraordinary event connected to it. Will be revealed in Part 3.